Hi everyone, my name is Emily and I'm an incoming first-year student at the University of Chicago. I watched so many of these videos when I was applying to college, but I noticed there's not a ton out about UChicago specifically. So I just wanted to take a minute to highlight my profile that was accepted to the University of Chicago. In this video, I will be going over my grades, classes, test scores, activities, and a rundown of my essays. This is my first video, so I would love to make more highlighting more specifics, reading my essays, and going over other tips that you guys may want. So just comment below if you would like any other specific videos and I'd be happy to make them. It's also worth mentioning that this is just my experience and there is no one way to get into any college. Colleges are all looking to build a diverse class of people with so many different unique interests. So I hope this video just helps you see an example of how I organized my application and some things I highlighted that I believe helped me get accepted. I hope you guys enjoy this video and thank you for watching. I will put timestamps in the description and let's just get into it. Alright, so first some background information about my application. I applied from a public school in the Chicago suburbs. My class size was 725 students, and my school does not do class rank, but they submit percentile cutoffs, and my GPA was just under the top 1 percentile cutoff. I applied in the early decision applicant pool, and my intended majors were economics and math. And UChicago does not admit you to a specific major, but it's helpful to have an idea in mind just so they can evaluate your activities in context of your major. But again, it's totally okay to be undecided, and they definitely celebrate people wanting to explore a lot of different interests. So for my GPA and classes, I had a 4.0 unweighted GPA and a 4.933 weighted GPA at the time of my admission. I'm going to just put up a little image on the screen with all of my classes because I felt like that was better than just like listing out my transcript. So when thinking about your classes, the main thing colleges are looking for is one, that you have hard classes with good grades. That does not mean all A's by any means. They evaluate you in the context of your school, so your counselor will submit a report on the general class difficulty and they'll look to see how you are in the context of your school. And then another thing they look for is that you are taking progressively difficult classes as you get older. So in each subject, perhaps going from honors to AP or going to a more difficult or higher level class is important, and especially your senior year, showing that you aren't taking an easy senior year and that you are still taking your academics seriously is also really important. Okay, so I'll just go into like my AP scores for the classes that I listed on that chart. So sophomore year, I took AP Macro, AP Stats, and AP US Gov, and I got 5s on all of those. And then junior year, I took AP Calculus BC, AP English Language, and AP Chemistry, and I got a 5 on Calculus and the AP subscore, a 5 on Lang, and a 4 on Chemistry. And then this year, they didn't see these scores, but I just listed them on my application. I had AP Micro, AP French, AP European History, AP English Literature, and AP Physics C, Mechanics and Electricity and Magnetism. Yeah, so those are all of my AP classes. And then I also had some dual enrollment classes, which were just marked as DE on that chart, and they were through Indiana University. So I took dual enrollment US history and also French. That's just like how my school does their curriculum for foreign language. You take dual enrollment before AP. And I also took dual enrollment multivariable calculus. Okay, so for standardized testing, I took the SAT. I took it 3 times and my super score was a 1570 with the 780 in the reading and writing section and 790 in the math section. So I kind of knew after the first time taking the SAT that it was a better test for me than the ACT, so I just continued taking this one. I studied in between my first and second time taking it, and the second time I took it, I got a 1500 with a 710 in the reading and writing and 790 in the math. And personally, I've always struggled with the reading and writing section, so kind of low 700s was where I always, I guess, was aiming for. And when I got this score, I really wasn't planning on taking it again, but I had an opportunity where I was free on a day and just wanted to just kind of take it again a couple months later without studying and without putting any pressure on it to just see if I did better. And it actually worked out really well because my reading score went up a lot. But what I would say with respect to that is if you get a low 1500 score, or in the context of your application, whatever score you think would be good for you, don't don't sacrifice other things like grades and other activities for trying to get a better score in the SAT, because really it's just one number, and in a holistic admissions process, it's not going to make that big of a difference whether you have like a 1500 or 1570, for example. But personally, I don't regret taking it again just because it wasn't a huge amount of effort. I just kind of showed up and was a lot more relaxed and did better. So if you have an opportunity to do something like that, personally, it was really helpful to me. But yeah, that's what I would recommend for that. And then I also submitted some SAT subject tests. Subject tests are not required really anywhere, but they are highly recommended at some schools. UChicago does not recommend or require them. I don't think they're really going to be have a huge impact on your application either way. But if you have the time to take them, it's nice to just have some differentiation in a subject you're good at. So I got an 800 in the Math 2 test, and I got a 700 on the chemistry test. I put that one on my Common App, but it wasn't really like a standout score. I just like had it because I took it. And I also took the literature test, the English literature test, and I did not do too well on that one, so I did not put it on my application. But again, subject tests aren't worth putting all of your time into. They're really not. But if you have an opportunity to take them, they can definitely help differentiate you from people with maybe similar grades in a class if you have a good score there. Okay, so on to the activity section. This section was probably like the hardest section of the Common App for me to fill out, just because it's really hard to have a balance between the activities that you think you put the most into, that you care about the most, and the activities that actually gave you the best tangible results to put on a college application. And since it's such a short little blurb for each activity, it's really important to make sure that you organize it in a way that your accomplishments stand out, and that the colleges can see kind of clusters of activities. So it's not 10 random isolated bullet points, but instead kind of themes within these activities that show your skills and really help you stand out as an applicant, such that you'll provide to the campus someone who is individually invested in the things that are important to you and not just spread out across a bunch of different activities. So when organizing this, my main activity was definitely music. I'm a cellist, but for the first activity, I actually chose to put my participation in a competition called the Euro Challenge, which is hosted through the European Union. I put this here because one, it had more connection to my major, economics, and two, it was my only major national recognition. So I just wanted to highlight that first, just so you couldn't really miss it on my application, skimming through it quickly. So I was on a team that got first place in our regional and was a national semifinalist, where we got to go to the New York Federal Reserve in New York and present to a board of economists there, and it was such an awesome opportunity. And I also was a mentor for this competition for my junior and senior year, because they only allow underclassmen to compete. So next I had a couple of music activities. Again, it was, especially with something like music, it's really hard to show tangible accomplishments with something that most of the time you put into it, you're just practicing and going to rehearsals and all of that. So I chose to first put my participation in the Illinois Music Education Association competitions. These are just like your standard state orchestra auditions that happen every year. So I was in the District 1 Orchestra freshman, sophomore, junior year, and the All-State Orchestra sophomore and junior year. And I was also principal cellist of the District 1 Orchestra sophomore year and of the All-State Orchestra junior year. So again, just put that first, even though that wasn't like the main involvement in music, just because it was easiest to show a tangible accomplishment right away. So my third listed thing on my Common App activity section was my involvement with the Elgin Youth Symphony Orchestra. I was the principal cellist for junior and senior year. This is an orchestra that has competitive auditions to get into, and it's kind of people from all over Illinois and the Midwest region in general. So again, shows involvement in music outside of just my school at a more regional level. And then the next activity I put was my primary academic activity, speech team. So I competed in radio speaking and original oratory throughout high school. I was the co-captain of the speech team in junior and senior year. And so I actually did not get to state until senior year, so I didn't have that on my application, but I did put my rankings in the state series at regionals and sectionals. And then also because it's kind of frustrating to like not to kind of have to reduce all that you do in speech every single week to just the state series. And a lot of people don't even like get to participate in the state series until they're a lot older. So I was lucky to participate as a freshman, but I still felt like I had a lot to show that wasn't in that state series category. So I just went into like SpeechWire and counted up the number of like championships and runner-up placements I had, and just put that number on there just to show that I was involved throughout the year, not just in the state series. And also I put this in my like honors section, but for like the National Speech and Debate Association, I had like special distinction from the number of points I had. So then the next major activity was my internship. This was an internship at a local nonprofit community law office called the Citizen Advocacy Center. I started interning here this summer going into my junior year, and they have like a summer program that like has like a presentation at the end. Is kind of like a whole program put together. I did that my junior year summer and my senior year summer. And I also volunteered kind of throughout the year there as well, but most of my hours were from the summer. I just did a lot of like research and intakes here. I sent freedom of information requests to municipalities and worked a lot with local governments. And I also produced some content for their webpage with citizen guides and some lesson plans for civic education. And I think it definitely helped my application stand out as a way that I both had an involvement within like a legal career to some capacity, and also gave back to my community because it was volunteer, it was unpaid. So for the sixth slot on the activity section, I put basically like the rest of my music stuff grouped together. Again, I had to split everything up to make sure that it kind of fell within bullet points and was easy to look at. So this was all of my like in-school stuff, I guess. So in my high school's orchestra, I was the principal cellist for junior and senior year, and I also did our pit orchestra, which was the pit orchestra for like a state-winning musical theater program. I also was on the orchestra leader board for my school, and I participated in the Big Buddies program, which is where we help middle school and elementary school students learn their instruments and provide private lessons to them. So for the next slot on the Common App, I was on math team. I didn't really have any like individual awards, like I did it more for fun, I guess, but I put that our team was like first place at regionals, and we went to state all the years that I was on it. And my next activity was economics club, and I was co-captain of economics club senior year, so I just put some like organization stuff, mentoring competitions, and doing stock market competitions. And then the next two things I had, the last two, were community service oriented activities. So the first one is the peer jury for my town. If you don't know what a peer jury is, it's basically a group of high school volunteers through the police department, and we hear cases from first-time juvenile nonviolent offenders and basically talk to them and kind of find out like their motivations for why they did that thing, and help them come up with a course of action to kind of reconcile that behavior instead of getting punished and having it on their permanent record. So that was a lot of fun to participate in that. And then my last activity on the Common App was through my church. I was an assistant catechist, so I just was one of the like helpers for Sunday school. So I did some organization things and helped with teaching students. So when analyzing my activities, what I think helped me get in, I'll just like kind of go through that. Honestly, I was really worried at first because I know you watch a lot of these videos and you see a lot of people with national, international rankings who did amazing things like starting their own nonprofit, their own startup, all those kinds of just kind of really out there, like those things that take a lot of initiative to do. And I didn't have anything that I thought stood out in that way, but I think I kind of downplayed the importance of finding where your skills kind of cluster together and giving back to your community in that way. So I think having kind of a common theme of performance through music and speech definitely stood out. Having a lot of leadership with music definitely stood out. And also having my volunteer activities be kind of centered around kind of like research, like legal things, I guess, with peer jury and my internship. And I think in general, just having like kind of set themes to my activities that were grouped together in a large amount of impact in a few things instead of a little bit in a lot of things. So for the essay portion of this video, I'm just going to give a little bit of a rundown of the prompt I chose, kind of what I wrote in summary, and also what I think the main point I was trying to get across about myself in each of these essays is. So starting with the Common App, I chose the second prompt. I'll read it right now. The lessons we take from obstacles we encounter can be fundamental to later success. Recount a time when you faced a challenge, setback, or failure. How did it affect you, and what did you learn from the experience? So I chose this prompt, and I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit nervous about it at first, just because a lot of people who write this prompt have some very emotional story that very clearly would catch the eyes of an admissions counselor. And personally, I didn't. In this essay, I just wrote about not getting to state for speech my third year after I had been on the state team since my freshman year, and kind of how that was very crushing and what I learned from it. So the main message of this essay that I was trying to get across was that my experience with speech was not about getting to state or having that tangible accomplishment, but about every other activity that it had helped me in that I didn't even notice at the time, and kind of that aspect of reflection and growth and maturity. And again, that's something that when you think about it is like a very easy essay topic. A lot of people have had a failure like that. So in order to get it to stand out, I would say I think the main thing about this essay was that it doesn't focus on the plot, it focuses on what I learned and what I'm trying to show about myself. With the Common App essay, when you're telling a story, the main point of the essay should be you and how you grew as a person, and the personality traits that you think are desirable for a college, to display those, not about what happened to you or just simply your reaction to it. So the next essay I'm going to talk about is the UChicago Uncommon essay. If you're planning to apply to UChicago, you probably know that they're kind of famous for their quirky out there essay prompts. So the one I chose was the Olive Garden prompt, so I'll read it right now. If there's limited amount of matter in the universe, how can Olive Garden, along with other restaurants and their concepts of food infinity, offer truly unlimited soup, salad, and breadsticks? Explain using any method of analysis you wish. Physics, biology, economics, history, theology. The options, as you can tell, are endless. So I felt very grateful that this prompt was chosen, simply because I think it's really hard for me, even though I would say I'm a somewhat creative person, I think it's hard for me to take something that is so abstract and make something useful out of it. And I think this prompt gave me a really, really good opportunity to use math and economics, my two majors, in a very useful way. So basically what I did, I'll explain this a lot more in another video, but I basically used the concept of infinity as sort of an abstract concept. I had a pretty creative visual introduction and conclusion, and kind of just went through how my perception of infinity changed with our math education in school. And then about like halfway through the essay, I kind of linked it and put it to practicality with economics, and basically applied the concept of infinity and theoretical infinity to opportunity cost and utility maximization and other economic principles, and just explained, I guess, like the kind of like how abstract has root in practice, I guess, is like the point of the essay, because again, it's not meant to have like a clear-cut yes or no kind of answer, but the essay is meant for you to show that you have the ability to use the things that you learn in school and outside of school in order to kind of respond to a prompt. So your answer probably won't be very definitive, but it should have a common message and a common, I guess, like explaining a phenomenon, in this case, like how does this happen? It should be clear that you have like a grounding, I guess, in how to explain that. So again, I think the things that helped me stand out with this essay were a very logical thought process and the ability to make abstract concepts realistic. And also, I think my intro and conclusion were kind of unique and kind of like a little confusing at first and then kind of tied together. And I think it's really satisfying when that happens with essays. So the final essay on my application was the Why UChicago essay. This essay is definitely super important to any school you're applying to, and especially at UChicago, I really liked that they don't have a word limit, so I wrote about like 900 to 1,000 words on this one, and it's really, really important to have a lot of details in this essay. That's like the main thing they're looking for, and also explaining not only what you like about the school, but perhaps like past experiences you've had that show how you fit into this school and how you will add to it and how you plan to use the opportunities at this school to help you in the future to make a bigger impact on the world. So I'll just kind of go through, I guess, like what I highlighted in this essay. So I actually I wasn't really sure like how this would go over, but it didn't go over poorly. So I started talking about coffee actually because they have a lot of really unique student-run coffee shops there, and they sent a postcard with all of them. So between my introduction and conclusion, I kind of talked about like the kind of like personalities of the coffee shops and how I found that interesting about the school, and it kind of drew me to it. And then I went into the first like main paragraph I had in this essay was specifically focusing on the economics major. And I chose to do this first because I think it was important to highlight specific research and extracurricular activities for my major that I researched and put in here, and kind of again explain why I was interested in them and what I specifically wanted to contribute to them. So then I went more to the general teaching style at Chicago and how they value so highly like the core curriculum and instilling just a wide breadth of knowledge in general. And I talked about kind of like other topics I've considered and how I want to study these in an interdisciplinary curriculum. And I also talked about the teaching style itself, the very discussion-based teaching style at UChicago, and how both in classes and just on campus, I think that is so important to having a thriving campus culture and how I plan to participate in that. And with that, I also talked about the importance UChicago places on free speech and intellectual diversity, because I think it really helps UChicago stand out amongst like Ivy League schools and other elite schools. I think UChicago is one of the only schools that really emphasizes that, and it's really clear in their student body with the amount of different opinions and how open people are to talking and having real discussions on campus. And then the last major paragraph, I talked about music. And even though I'm not a music major or anything, I highlighted how they have a very academic approach to music at UChicago. And I had experiences with my youth orchestra that kind of like directly tied to some of the classes there with a lot of the topics they covered. So I just talked about how like that had always been an important aspect to my music education and how I wanted to continue that at UChicago at a school that lets everyone participate in that, even if you're not a music major. So UChicago does not do interviews, but they do have an opportunity for submitting kind of a supplementary video. I personally did not do this because I felt that there wasn't really a like creative way that I could stand out with a video, but if you have one, it's definitely great to do that. I don't think it's necessary at all. I don't think like most people who get in do the video, but it's definitely worth your time if you have a creative way to express yourself. But while I didn't do this video, I did submit an art supplement, which was just about 3 minutes of me playing a concerto just to highlight my playing, because again, music is such a hard thing to put tangibly on a resume or an application, so I wanted them to be able to judge it for themselves, I guess. Yeah, so that was my application as a whole. I hope this was helpful for you guys to see some context to my application and some things that I think helps me stand out, and maybe get some ideas about how you could organize your application or what you might want to emphasize within it. Let me know if I could make other videos. I'd like to like, I guess, run through my essays and actually read them out loud and provide more specific tips to those essays. And any other tips that you guys would like or think could be helpful, just leave a comment and I will be sure to make those videos. Thank you guys so much for watching, and good luck with everything.